Hello, everybody. I'm Cash. Welcome back to In the Corner today, episode 186, and we have a massively busy weekend of fights coming up. So many big things happening. We're going to talk about all of them. First, we have to start with the most exhausting saga in combat sports right now, our update on Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. The update is there is no update. Turki Al-Sheikh and Sella and that whole group have still not approved Matchroom's changes from last week. That addendum we heard about, I believe, was Wednesday or Thursday of last week. It is Thursday. They have not yet accepted the offer. So we're at a standstill with the fight. Tyson Fury said that he is giving them a deadline of next Friday now to go forward with the fight. I don't know if he has that kind of pull that he can just say, I'm pulling out of the fight, because he also has signed a contract. And the whole thing they've been saying is like, look, we've signed a contract. We don't pull out of our contracts, but they've, if they want to make a change to that contract, we can do that. But we are contracted to fight in the UK. I think that, Turkey should just pay up and give them what they want. But I don't know. Like, at this point, I just want them to do whatever they can to make the fight, because if this is going to go on the list of one of the fights that would never happen, it's going to be very disappointing. But let's talk about some real, live, competitive world title, prime heavyweight action. This Saturday, O2 Arena in London, England. It's a really big deal. Moses Itauma makes the first jump of his career to 12 rounds, to a top 10 opponent, to a world championship, taking on Filip Hrgovic for the vacant IBF world title. Of course, vacated by Alexander Usyk. It was meant to be Frank Sanchez. The winner will have to fight Frank Sanchez. He, he'd won the eliminator. He agreed to a step aside to allow Itauma and Hrgovic, who were the two next contenders, to fight for the title instead. So the winner will have to fight them. And yeah, I mean, this is what we've been asking for. Actually, this is specifically what we've been asking for since Moses knocked out Dillian Whyte last year. Filip Hrgovic was on the undercard, and we said Hrgovic is the perfect guy to test Itauma, because he's a top 10 opponent. He's tough. His only loss comes to Daniel Dubois, and that was on cuts. And that is really going to decide how good Moses really is. And he's going to give him rounds. Like I said, Philip's only loss was on cuts. It wasn't him getting knocked out. He has a notoriously great chin. I mean, we saw the shots he took from Adelaide. He doesn't go down. This is going to be really fun. I think this will go into the later rounds. I think that Filip is really confident. Of course, I'm still picking Moses Itauma just from the eye test, and while lesser opponents, but the opponents he's fought, how dominant he has just completely sent them to the shadow realm. His speed is unlike anything else in the heavyweight division right now. He has the power to, the combinations, the skill, the footwork. He's the complete package. And he's young. He would become the second youngest heavyweight champion in all of history, of course, behind Mike Tyson. There's a lot of pressure riding on him, and I am a little bit worried he's going to feel that. So like I said, I'm picking Moses. But there is always some worry in these fights like this. Philip's confident. He's tough. If you got to be really, really good to beat him. And even Dubois, that fight early on with Dubois and Hrgovic wasn't a completely one-sided fight. It was really just the cuts that kind of gave Dubois the edge. I mean, this is a big jump. This is a really big jump going from Jermaine Franklin to Filip Hrgovic. Dude, if Moses wins this fight, I'm picking him over every single heavyweight in the world right now. The only one has been Usyk. It's just that Usyk really didn't look great against Rico. And I feel like it's Moses' time. I think he's the best heavyweight in the world. But like I said, besides Usyk, just because he hasn't proven as much, but he is something else. I cannot wait to watch this fight. It's going to be a war. And yeah, I mean, look, if he wins it, of course, the one that everyone wants to talk about is Daniel Dubois. Frank Warren has said, we want to do that fight. It's going to be in a few fights' time, so it's not going to be next. I was hoping that Itauma beats Hrgovic, Dubois beats Wardley in the rematch. We do that one next year. Stadium fight, unification in the summer. They said it will be a stadium fight, but Moses does have a mandatory to fight in Frank Sanchez. I think they will take care of that next. Maybe Dubois has another fight or two in the meantime as well, but that's one we want to see. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with this one. I think it's just such good matchmaking, and it'll be a very big fight on Saturday. Undercard, pretty solid too. Co-main event, Sam Noakes is back taking on Dennis Baranchuk. Only his second fight since his world title loss to Abdullah Mason. Baranchuk, first fight since losing to Keyshawn Davis. He lost his title in that fight. And he, I don't know, because he really did a great job against Navarrete in the fight before that. He did not look good at all against Keyshawn. He got stopped in, 4 rounds? And now we haven't seen him since then. That was a year and a half ago. I'm going to be picking Sam Noakes here. I'm hopeful that Baranchuk can give him a good fight, but this may be something where we just see Sam Noakes, who's a very active puncher and almost always gets his opponents out of there. We may see him really start to break Baranchuk down more as the fight goes on. Nelson Husa is fighting Thomas Narma. That fight was just added. Both these guys undefeated. Didn't realize Narma was. Husa will probably sell a lot of tickets. Guessing he'll get the win as well. Konstantin Urso defends his British and Commonwealth welterweight championship against Ben Vaughn. I'm a really big fan of Urso. I think he's a lot of fun. Ben Vaughn is a solid fighter, but not anybody I'm going to pick over Konstantin Urso. I really want to see Urso fight Walker if Walker's going to stay at this British level. If not, Walker should go up to world level, but I don't know. There's some good fights there. Alois Jr. was meant to be fighting Mike Perez. He will no longer be on the main card as Mike Perez is out of the fight. I believe it's some kind of an injury, which is really disappointing. I thought it was one of the most well-matched fights on the undercard. It was interesting to me. But Alois does get to stay on the card, thankfully fighting Sheriff Musa. It's still a 10-round fight, but his opponent, Sheriff Musa, is 4-2-1. Only won one of his last 4 fights. I'm hoping that Alois just gets him out of there quickly, but he hasn't fought in over a year, I believe. So good to see him back in action. Guido Vianello instead will be opening up the pay-per-view portion of the card, taking on the undefeated Moses Jolly. So a bit of an interesting one there. We're going to have to see what Jolly's got. I've always been very high on Vianello, and that I think he's an underrated heavyweight. He's a really good gatekeeper. Let's see if he can keep the gates closed for Moses Jolly. Tony Curtis taking on undefeated Imad Nasib, Arbner Jashari, and Nurman Hussein. Jashari's undefeated. Those fights are both 8 rounds. You also have a 6-rounder between Frankie Wood and Callum Lee. They're both undefeated. So this is pretty good matchmaking for a Queensberry undercard. At least that portion. Because then you got Sam King, Zayn Ahmed, and Hassan Ishaq, who we're very high on. Those guys are all fighting opponents with losing records. But look, you know what? 12-fight card starting Saturday, I believe, at 11 a.m. prelims, 2 p.m. main card. It's going to be a lot of fun. Shanghai earlier that morning. A solid UFC fight card. Not their best, not their worst. Main event is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Song Yadong. This fight just makes the most sense right now in the bantamweight division, I feel. Song is coming off of a win over Davison Figueiredo just a few months ago, also in China. Umar also coming off a win against Davison Figueiredo, the win against Mario Batista before that. So, you have to think Umar is really closing in on a title shot. Thing is that there's a bit of a line forming. Merab and Piotr Yan, they're finishing off their trilogy in October finally. Is he going to get next? Is Sean O'Malley going to get next? This will all decide it. I do think Umar wins this fight, probably by a pretty one-sided, unanimous decision, grappling display. Song Yadong is really good up to a certain level. Then I think he kind of caps out. We see him get a lot of great wins, but once you put him into the top tier of the division, Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan, these kind of guys, he's not really going to get wins over them. I put Umar in that level as well, where I don't think Song will beat him. But I'm sure we'll see him back in another fun fight. Co-main event, Yan Xiaonan versus Denise Gomez. Yan Xiaonan, it's been a while since she fought. She is number 4 in the strawweight division. I think she's going to beat Denise Gomez, but we shall see. Gomes is number 14, so not a huge underdog, though. Aora Chilang, I'm sure I butchered that, is fighting Kaya Sakura. Asakura's second fight at the bantamweight division. I like that they're moving him at a bit of a slower pace. They came out really guns blazing when he debuted a flyweight, 2 losses in a row. Now he's on a 1-fight win streak. This could bring it to 2, and I think that he does get it done. I think he looks good at bantamweight. I think he's a really good fighter. Alex Perez and Sumudaerji, they are settling their unsettled business from May, where Sumudaerji was winning that fight. Alex Perez gets hit with a groin, a low blow, and he cannot continue. So I'm glad they're rebooking it. I think Sumudaerji should be able to get him over this time. Luce, debutant, taking on Levi Rodriguez Jr. I'm not really super excited about this one on the main card, but guessing because it's a Chinese debutant and he's a 205er, we're going to get a knockout on that one. Speaking of debutant, Bilal Hassan just debuted on the Contender Series. Maybe the most impressive singular talent we've seen on the Contender Series this whole season. He's going to be fighting Nilson Rojas. I think he's going to obliterate him in 1 round and then moonwalk around the cage. Really, really high on Bilal Hassan. Featured prelim Namzre Batbiar fighting Andre Lima. He's an underdog there. We shall see if Lima can get it done. Ray Saruya, huge favorite over Kevin Borjas. I think Ray Saruya will get that win. He's a really good fighter as well. I think he had a big finish last time. And some other fights, Jack Jenkins, Sean Woodson. Zhao Long returning after his fight with Cody Garbrandt. That was when he was winning, but then just kept on hitting Garbrandt low, and he literally got that those point deductions cost him the fight. So that was crazy. We do have some breaking news. Of course, we were meant to have Mike Perry, Dillon Danis this weekend. Really, really was excited about that fight. That's no longer happening. Dillon Danis has not turned up. And at first we didn't know why. And it was like, wow, this is really ridiculous. Can we say we're surprised though? Dillon Danis, notoriously unprofessional, does not fight, does not show up for things. He did post. He's stitching something up and it looks pretty serious. But again, how much can you really trust Dillon Danis? That video could be years old. That video could not even be him. So I'm not really giving him any slack there. I don't like Dillon Danis, and this just is really frustrating because I was excited for this. It's a different kind of promoter, dual arena. It's their first event. I want to see what they could bring. Mike Perry will still be fighting. The event is going forward. He will now be fighting Brandon Jenkins, who's coming off of a very big win over Chris Avila on the MVP MMA Netflix card in May. So he gets the opportunity. He's flying out right now, supposedly, to fight Mike Perry. And, so we're going to do Perry versus Jenkins instead. Don't think that warrants a $30 pay-per-view, especially when you look at the undercard. Co-main event is a kickboxing match between Gypsy Crusader, who fought on Brand Risk earlier this year, and Ben Azule. I don't know. And Phil Rowe versus Javonis Ross. There's really nothing on this undercard. We'll see if I even end up. I'm definitely going to try and watch the main event, of course, but we'll see if I even buy this pay-per-view. This is rough. Okay. More boxing in the UK. MVPW 6. Chantelle Cameron, Mikaela Mayer. What a banger. What a great fight between two pound-for-pound talents in the women's boxing, to the whole sport. It's a really good fight. WBC, WBO, and WBA super welterweight titles, I believe. I believe there's 3 on the line here. Am I right? No. Lauren Price is the WBA champion. Isn't she? Or is she the IBF? She may be the IBF. No, because that was a unification between them. I'm going to look this up while I'm talking because now I'm confusing myself. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We've got a great fight here. I think that there is a lot of potential for the winner, and there's a lot of upside with MVP right now. Mikaela Mayer signed this deal. It's a 6-fight deal. We said she said this is probably going to take her to the end of her career, which doesn't surprise me. She says she wants Lauren Price. She wants Clarissa Shields. I think both those fights could happen. It seems like they're going to be fighting each other next. So should they fight each other next, then I think the winner of this fights the winner of Shields versus Price. Even though they're like champions in all different divisions, let's just match them all up and see how the cookie crumbles. Hopefully Shields versus Price does happen this year later in the UK. And then we can see Mikaela Mayer or Chantelle Cameron fight the winner of that. Okay. So looking at super welterweight, I had it totally wrong. So Chantelle Cameron is the WBO champion. Mikaela Mayer is WBA and WBC. I'm getting confused. Lauren Price is the champion for the WBA, WBC, and IBF at welterweight. The WBO is held by Mikaela Mayer at welterweight. And then O'Shea Jones has the IBF title at super welterweight. So it's confusing because Mayer's in both divisions. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Cameron versus Mayer, really good fight. Cameron riding a pretty good win streak since she lost to Katie Taylor. I believe she's fought 4 times since then? I could be wrong, but I believe that's the number. Mikaela Mayer herself, she should be on a 3-fight win streak, I want to say. Yes, 3-fight win streak since the loss to Natasha Donis. For the record, I don't think she lost that fight at all. I thought it was a horrible robbery, one of the worst robberies I've seen. I thought she totally won it. But again, that's another day's story. I think Mikaela Mayer beats her. I really do. I think she's bigger. I think that she's more informed. I think she's had the more impressive performances as of late. I think Chantelle Cameron's great, but you look at the fighters that she's fought in her last few fights, they haven't been Sandy Ryan level, that Mikaela Mayer fought. Chantelle Ryan's coming off a win against Michaela Kodaskova, Jessica Kamara, Patricia Bergut, and Elhem Makhaled. None of those fighters are on the same level as the girls, or the women, I should say, that Mikaela Mayer's fought. So we shall see. It's going to be a good fight, but I think Mayer's the star here. Co-main event: Caroline Dubois defends against Amelia Moore. This is UK versus USA. That's the name of the game. Couple world titles on the line. Moore is undefeated. This is only her 5th pro fight. I think Dubois is going to completely 190 her. Again, I don't want to disrespect Moore. I just don't know much about her, and I think Caroline Dubois is a really good lightweight. So I think she wins, and then maybe she fights the winner of a recently announced world title fight that we will talk about later on in the show. Raina Tellez taking on Jessica Barry, UK versus USA. That's a little bit more well-matched one. Tellez, of course, she is coming off the first loss of her career. Not necessarily a bad loss because it was against Amanda Serrano. She gave a good account of herself in that fight. Jessica Barry, I'm not too familiar with. We'll see what she can do. Terry Harper versus Miranda Reyes. It's an 8-round fight on the main card. Harper, of course, coming off the loss to Caroline Dubois. Miranda Reyes coming off of 2 wins on MVP shows after losing, against Stephanie Hahn and Caroline Dubois. So that'll be a good one. And then also on the main card, you have Tycee Gallagher fighting Brandy Robinson. I got Scott Melvin versus Dylan Sheem on the undercard. That seems to be an okay fight. Gemma Richardson back in action. Shannon Courtney back in action. Niraj Goyat back in action, headlining the prelims. He's always a character. Hamza Udin is fighting on this card really randomly. I don't even think his fight's going to be on TV, which is disappointing. I mean, he's fighting a journeyman, so it's not a big deal. He, of course, has a British title fight coming up. This is just a little bit of a run out. Really cool thing here. BKFC is on Fenway Park this weekend in Boston. 92, Kai Stewart versus Harry Gigliotti for the featherweight championship. I mean, the fight itself is pretty solid. Gigliotti's supposed to be good. He's undefeated. Only his second fight with BKFC. It's some BKB fights before that. But I think Kai Stewart is regarded as probably pound for pound number 2, maybe even 1 in bare knuckle. Just really, really good fighter. Dominates everyone he goes in with. And I think that he will retain his title. But we'll see. I mean, I think Gigliotti is from Boston, so he'll have the crowd behind him, and maybe there's something in him that I'm not expecting. But yeah, I am picking Kai Stewart. As good as this card is for a BKFC event, I mean, co-main event, Christine Ferreira versus Sophia Landy. I believe that's got like the Queen of Violence title on it. Joe Lazon, a former UFC fighter, making his debut on the card. Rico Disculo versus Trey Martin. Pat Casey versus Dallas Davison. I mean, these are some like names you just see all the time on BKFC shows. Taylor Starling is back. But at the end of the day, the star here is Fenway Park. I think it's going to look really cool. Supposedly the fight is happening on home plate. I always have said and thought that they need to do more fights in baseball stadiums. We don't see it much, and I think it looks so cool. I remember it was in Creed 3, and I was like, man, they got to do that more often. And so, yeah, BKFC is doing it, and I think it's going to look really cool. I love BKFC. I love when they do something new and unique like this. I love the unique locations. They're not the only ones who do it. Of course, UFC just did the White House, but so hopefully we can see some more stuff like this. ProBox TV launches their championship series this weekend, the first of their new big shows. A lot of stuff going down with them. They've had the September 11th show in California, and then they also confirmed they're going to do show October 16th in Phoenix, November 13th in El Paso, Texas, and December 12th in Orlando. So every single month, Friday or Saturday night, you're going to get a ProBox show. This one, really, really good. Interim world title fight in the main event at 168. Lester Martinez, Luka Plantic. Undefeated versus undefeated. They're really setting this up as the winner's going to get the winner of Canelo and Billy. I don't think that's the case. I think they're just framing like that because the winner is the mandatory with the WBC. There is a history between Martinez and Billy, and Canelo's the biggest star in the sport. Of course, that's going to be a promotional angle to this. I think they've done a really good job promoting it. I'm seeing the advertisements all day long on social media, and we'll see if they can do good and get people to buy that $5 membership. I will be buying it. I love ProBox. And, I've heard a lot about Luka Plantic. I don't know if I've ever actually seen him fight. I have seen Lester Martinez fight. And I can tell you, Lester Martinez is a killer. I mean, even looking at Plantic's record, not a lot of super notable names here. So I think Martinez is going to win this one. I mean, he may even stop him. He didn't stop Emmanuel Alim, which Diego Pacheco did. I don't know if that was an off night. Wasn't the best performance we've seen from Martinez, but still very one-sided. I think this won't be one-sided and could end in a knockout. He's a really all-action puncher. Very exciting to watch. And I think that he's going to do a good job on this Saturday. And headline what is the biggest night in ProBox TV history. Co-main event, Najee Lopez taking on Juan Carrillo, another undefeated versus undefeated. Najee Lopez coming off a fantastic knockout win of Manuel Gallegos, one of the fights of the year for 2026. Juan Carrillo is a really good fighter. Colombian guy, 15-0. Like, how many knockouts are in those 15 wins? I think it's quite a bit. 11, so not bad. Colombian puncher taking on a Puerto Rican puncher. That's going to be a fun coming event. I am still picking Najee Lopez. I think he's a legitimate guy who's entering the top 10 in the 175-pound division, and that's a big deal because 175 is loaded. I'm excited for that. Ramon Cardenas, great fighter, fighting Leonardo Carrillo. So another Colombian named Carrillo. Not as familiar with him. I think Cardenas gets the win here. At least he should he show up. And maybe he can fight Gary Antonio Russell. who just captured an interim world title last week. Luis Torres fights Jordan White. Fantastic, well-matched Pro Box TV fight. You know that one's going to be a banger. I love that fight. You also have another one on here. It's not on BoxRec anymore, but I know it was meant to happen. I hope it still is as well. John Mindoro fighting Carlos Ocampo. Mindoro, of course, a really good prospect they have from the Philippines. Ocampo, not the greatest run recently. Of course, most recently lost to Callum Walsh on Zuffa. I thought Zuffa would keep you on it if you lost, but I guess that's not true, huh? But yeah, that's another 10-round fight on the card. A lot of fights. Some other prospects like Malachi Ross and Ramon Ordonez on the prelims as well. It's going to be a fun night on YouTube, Pro Box TV. All right, you know what? We've talked about so many fights this weekend. I think the leader in boxing promotion is Matchroom. They have 2 cards this weekend. You know, like that's how loaded it is. Now, I will say, if you were to take every Matchroom card this year and you were to rank them in terms of importance and excitement, these would be the last 2. And like that's not, I'm not trying to hate, but it's just true. These are the least notable events they've done. The first one, which I'm really excited about, Friday night, Crib Royale in Orlando, is their first inaugural Project Series event, which is going to be, I don't know if it's just in the U.S., but it's essentially like their U.S. version of Next Gen, almost taking over from Most Valuable Prospects, where they're going to be working with Crib Royale, supposedly, and matching up undefeated good prospects against one another. And that's what it is. Main event, Corey Marksman fighting Christian Barreto. Lightweight championship on the line. So some rankings involved. I have always been a fan of Corey Marksman ever since he Most Valuable Prospects. I've watched all of his fights since then because they've all been on MVP shows, some on Matchroom shows here and there. But he's just a really, really good fighter. He's got a big crowd out there. He's fun to watch. He's a good character. He's an entertainer. He has an entertaining style. I don't know much about Barreto, but I'm going to pick Marksman to get the win here just because I'm a fan of him. And I love this concept for Matchroom so much. And if it means more shows, it means more shows. Co-main event is Alex Bray versus Travis Ingram. Now, these are 2 undefeated fighters on the Box Lab stable. Box Lab Promotions is, of course, who has all these fighters on their roster, like Corey Marksman, who kind of supplies the undercards for Matchroom, MVP, PBC whenever they come to Crib Royale. And yeah, I mean, this is a really, really good fight. Maybe even better than the main event. They're both undefeated, like I said. It's just a really fun matchup. Travis Ingram was in a great fight last year. Who was the guy he fought? He fought another Box Lab fighter. It was Yoelvis Gomez, and that was a draw. It was a really good one, and Alex Bray headlined a card earlier this year. It's going to be great. Kaipo Gallegos taking on Desmond Lyons, and then Carlos De Leon versus Maxwell Montez. Now, only the A sides are undefeated in that fight, but both 8-rounders. Haven Brady Jr. is also on this card, taking on Brian Jimenez. Brian Jimenez, he had fought both Alan Garcia and Joshua Pagan this year. So, not a great run for his record, but it doesn't look like this fight's going to be on DAZN, which I'm going to be disappointed in. I hope it still is. I hope we get all 5 of these fights. Haven Brady is their new signee. He's a really, really good fighter. And, yeah, I mean, he's definitely fighting an overmatched opponent, but I still want to see it. They also have a show on Saturday night. That is in Guadalajara, Mexico. The return of Mauricio Lara. Got to be honest, just trying to satisfy their deal with Boxstars, whoever it is that they do for their Mexico shows. I just feel like when you look at their other cards from Mexico this year, and even last year, Sugar Nunez headlined. They had Khalil versus Manuel Gallegos. The rematch, that was a big deal. Adrian Curiel challenging Chispa Medina most recently. This is a bit of a step down. Mauricio Lara is a name, but I don't have a lot of interest in him fighting anymore. Carlos Ornelas. I mean, Lara's he's on a 4-fight win streak. When has he been fighting? I didn't know he fought at all. Anyways, Carlos Ornelas. He lost to Abdullah Mason last year. That was Abdullah Mason's first 10-round fight, and he got stopped in the 6th. Has had 1 win since then. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Mauricio Lara should get the win here. But like I said, he's washed, so maybe this turns into an all-Mexican war. Jorge Mata versus Luis Ruelas Martinez. Brendan Mosqueda, who's an undefeated featherweight prospect. He's supposedly pretty good. He's on the card in a 10-rounder as well. Joshua Franco, former world champion, returning in an 8-rounder. And then the Carbajal twins, I believe, are both in 4-round fights. Yeah, so 6-fight card. I don't know if they're all going to be on DAZN, but we'll see. Should be kind of fun. Salida Promotions, lastly, rounding out the weekend. They have a very active schedule this year. Back on Win Records Network, you know, their supplemental shows, I guess you could say, or complimentary shows to the big DAZN ones. Main event, I'm not actually sure what it is. Brandon Moore versus Brian Jennings is the most notable fight of the card. You know, rising heavyweight contender against former heavyweight title challenger. Jennings he's on a 3-fight win streak, but Brandon Moore, I think, will win. It's Moore's first fight in almost a year, but he seems to be one of the more decent heavyweights we have in America right now, so I think he gets the win. Now, the real headliners are the cousins of Johnny Mansour and Julius Bayo. I'm not going to be honest, I really don't get how much hype these guys get. I mean, Julius Bayo is supposed to be a really good amateur. He is signed with Top Rank, but, he's not as far into his pro career, so it's really Johnny Mansour who, got to give him credit, does a great job at marketing himself. He's always on my social media. He's got a ton of followers, and he feels like he is a really good, self-promoter because he's not signed by any of the big promoters. But I don't know. I feel like they're trying to push us like, yeah, come watch us fight. And they're not necessarily overly exciting, and they're not fighting great opposition. I mean, they're earlier in their careers, but it's just, you're not main event fighters yet. There's not a lot of interest in you fighting your 8th professional fight. That's just an undercard thing. So it's rough for me to get behind, but they do a lot of good numbers, so good for them. Sardia Simmons, he's fighting in an 8-rounder on this card. I think that's a step up for him. Jasmine Hampton versus Gloria Munguia, not a bad fight. Hussam Al-Mashadi, another fighter from that area in an 8-rounder. Savannah Tini, Richard Fernandez Jr., Lance Smith, these are the guys. And Saim Maldonado are some of the other Salida prospects rounding out the card. I think like 9, 10, 11 fights in total. It's a big one. All right. That is all the events we have coming up this weekend. It's a ton. We still have time to get into some fights that we had this week. I forgot about all this stuff. There's so much to happen. Huge fight on Wednesday in Australia. Nikita Tszyu, Ben Mahoney, flooded with controversy this fight. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it's a good fight, right? I enjoyed it a lot. I think Ben Mahoney's a great start in the first 2 rounds. And then Nikita Tszyu kind of takes over from there, I thought. I thought Mahoney maybe won another round, maybe 2. I thought he closed decently well, but that middle 70% of the fight was all Nikita Tszyu for me. It was really, really good. He was pushing the pace. It felt like Ben Mahoney was getting a lot of smaller shots in, but Nikita Tszyu was hitting him with the big shots, and those to me will score you more. I was excited. I was enjoying it. There were talks of, if Nikita Tszyu wins this, he's going to fight Keith Thurman or Tony Harrison in a U.S. debut. We did get the fight on DAZN here in the States, which was really nice. But then the scorecards come out, and it's a draw. And at first, my first reaction is, that's really weird. That's not the right decision. Nikita Tszyu definitely won. I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. And then as I'm listening to the interview, Nikita Tszyu says, yeah, I thought that he edged it by a round or 2. Now, I'll say this. I have never heard a fighter in a controversial decision like a draw or a win that they got when most people don't think they won it. I've never seen them give that up and say, I don't think that I deserved it. I think I lost tonight. Even when they probably do know that, they always stand strong and say, no, I thought I won, because you want to look good. I was shocked to hear that from Nikita Tszyu, and I was like, okay, I must really be crazy. How did I give him the win when even he didn't think he won? And then I go on Twitter, everyone else had Nikita Tszyu winning the fight. And, I mean, Ben Mahoney's in there, and I like him. He seems like a great guy, but he's in there talking like, that was like, he probably thinks that everyone else thinks that he won because Nikita Tszyu just told him he won. And then he's going to go on stage. He's going to go on Twitter later and see, oh, my God, everyone thought I lost because you did lose. And so I hate seeing, when fights go to draws and they shouldn't. But I just thought it was so much more wild to me that Nikita Tszyu won that fight. And I feel bad for him. He seemed to be in such a bad headspace, and I feel like he's had, Michael Zarafa controversy earlier this year. He just hasn't caught a break. But hey, this was an IBF Super Welterweight Eliminator. I hope they run it back. I think they need to. I think it's an even bigger fight now in Australia. I think it's a huge fight now. And it was a really good one the first time around, so no reason why not to run it back. They're both undefeated still. It's just a really, really weird result. Co-main event, Callum Peters continues to be very impressive. He stops Blake Wells in round 8. Another completely one-sided dominant performance. I think he may be the best Australian boxer right now. Him and Tara Moana, I would say, are the two prospects coming through that are just really, really impressing me every time I see them. Kira Rustin. This fight was 9-0, 9 knockouts versus 9-0, 9 knockouts with an undefeated American Sandre Simmons. Rustin totally dominated. I mean, he blew him out in the round. Now, I will say this, stoppage, a little bit early. Simmons did go down legit, and then he was kind of hurt and he was defending, but he wasn't throwing back, so I get it, but I thought it was a little bit of an early stoppage. But yeah, Kira Rustin continues to be a good fighter. Cohen Mazzudiero, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. He gets a decision win in a really fun fight with Sam Beck. Majority decision, I thought that he had it more clearly. He'll be out sooner rather than later. Brandon Grouch gets the win over Ike Pluto again. I thought Ike Pluto may have edged that one. I mean, this was their second fight. They just fought last month. Max Reeves, he had an 8th round finish on the prelims. Some other fighters here and there that are Australian prospects. Contender Series. We got to talk about this. Oh my gosh, there was so much that happened this week. Bellemere, a minus 6,000 favorite, loses to Alex Apodaca in the main event of Contender Series Week 3 by decision. I thought it was the right decision. I had Apodaca winning round 2 and 3. It was a really fun fight. And yeah, this really just nobody saw this coming. Now, I mean, I will say it's hard to make odds for these fights, and Bellemere has a name and Apodaca doesn't, so that's really all that they're going to make the names off of. It's all based on fan perception. So I think this was just unproven versus unproven. And yeah, I do feel bad for Bellemere because she was talking a big game. You know, I'm going to be the first UFC champion, Zuffa boxing champion, gold medal Olympian, and I'm going to be the UFC BJJ champion. And then she comes and loses her fight on Contender Series. So it definitely looks bad. She and Namo Fazil, which I thought was interesting, were probably the two most notable named fighters this season of Contender Series, who a lot of people said should have just gotten to the debut in the UFC without having to go through Contender Series, and they both lost in pretty big upsets. So, yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I'm super happy for Apodaca. Of course, she gets a contract, and so she will be fighting in the UFC sooner rather than later. And just really, really crazy stuff there. I saw somebody put like an $80 bet in on her, and they won like $1,300. That's nuts. Some quick prelims on that card. Nick Galanti, first round knockout. Guilherme Uriel, first round submission. Both those were in like under a minute, I think. They, of course, both got contracts. Sean Clancy Jr., really, really dominant win over 2 rounds to get the finish. He was a very impressive fighter from Scotland, just full control. And then I think the star of the night was Ronald Humphrey, who got a first round submission. I got to give props to Alexis Miranda because he made that shit a war, and it was a war for the 1 round that it lasted. But yeah, Humphrey is just a complete beast, like nonstop. So much great wrestling and striking, and then he's a great character on the mic. So really, really excited to see his debut. He's one of the best guys we've seen so far. Dana White, kind of being a dick, shut down a reporter for asking, like, oh, could you see him fight Kike Brito? You know, who just knocked out Namo Fazil. And he's like, that's a dumb question. I'm like, that's a great suggestion, actually. All right, let's get into some news because we're wasting time. Dmitry Bivol versus Callum Smith deal agreed. Look, this is good news. You know, we've known this fight is going to happen. We've known that they were getting close. The purse was meant to be today. There's no need for them now as we got the fight. All I'll say is, good. Glad to hear it. Let's get an announcement soon. Apparently, RCC is going to promote it in Russia on December 12th. And, let's get it over the line. That'll be a big day for fights, it seems, with UFC in Vegas that night. Sebastian Fundora versus Ermal Hadribeaj has now been announced for October 17th. Not in California as we thought. It will be at the Chelsea in Las Vegas. Bit disappointed it's not going to be at a bigger venue. And it's going to be a TNT X DAZN fight. Now, this is pretty surprising considering the neighboring fights, Navarrete Foster and Schofield Bahdi, which was also announced, which we'll talk about. But that seemed to be the kind of fights that were all floating to be on DAZN in the U.S. this month. And out of the 3, I think everyone is saying that they would have lastly chosen this one. Now, I would choose Navarrete Foster to be TNT fight because that's the biggest fight and it's a great fight. But I'm not mad at them doing this because Fundora is an all-action fighter and he's unique. He is very, very tall and lanky and he's different from anybody else that you see. And so, and he's explosive and he's fighting a guy that he's more than likely going to stop. So I think this is a good idea because this will grow the sport. People are going to watch this and they're going to be like, who's this guy, Sebastian Fundora? I'm like, wow, he's huge. And he's like, oh my God, he's a monster. That is how you grow it. Navarrete Foster, if Foster dominates that fight, it may not be the most exciting. So here you're pretty much guaranteed to have Fundora go excitingly, and I think that's cool. Co-main event is going to be, Brandon Figueroa fighting Tomoki Kameda, defending his title. Second fight this year for Figueroa. He's a little bit more active. Tomoki Kameda, don't think he really deserved a title shot. His last fight was a loss to Angelo Leo, but Leo hasn't even fought since then, so why not? He's a name. And so that's what they're going to do. And then before that, you're going to get Jamal Charlo fighting Cohen Mazoudier. Now, this is really surprising to me because they were, of course, meant to fight on the Spence Zoo card. Jamal Charlo had visa issues. He couldn't make it happen. And Cohen gets a fight anyways. And after Cohen won, they kept on saying, like, oh, you're going to fight Jamal Charlo? He was like, yeah, I want that fight. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. That fight only made sense in Australia because he was on a USA versus Australia undercard. Why would they bring you out to USA. You're not a name. You're not even a super middleweight. They don't need you for Jermall Charlo's comeback fight. It can be against whoever. But no, I guess they really wanted Masvidal. They felt like they didn't get to honor the contract they had with him, which is cool. But I don't know. It just feels really random to so much devote to a fight like that. There's not a lot of point in that fight, in my opinion, at least to rebook it. But like I said, the week before, October 10th in Chicago, Floyd Schofield-Lucas Bahdi now announced for a Golden Boy on his own card, WBA lightweight title on the line. This fight has long been talked about. It's now official, and it's such a good fight, man. I'm excited for that. Kid Austin's first world title fight. Same with Lucas Bahdi. Someone's always got to go. The co-main event, probably even better, Oscar Collazo officially moving up to flyweight to take on Ricardo Sandoval. After his last fight, Collazo said, I kind of want to come up to flyweight and fight Ricardo Sandoval. It's going to be a big fight. There was nothing for him at 105, 108 besides becoming undisputed or another divisional champion. He is such a good fighter. He needs to be fighting other big names, and Ricardo Sandoval is a fantastic fighter. He, of course, just beat Kenshiro Taraji last year. Hasn't been able to fight since then. He was meant to fight Galal Yafai. Didn't end up coming through. But, it's a really good fight between two of the best fighters in those lower weight classes. Two unified flyweight titles on the line. It's going to be a big deal. I'm really, really excited for it. It's a great world title doubleheader from Golden Boy, so props to them for making it happen. And so what's going to happen is once he steps into the ring on October 10th, he will be stripped of his WBO title. At least I'm sure the WBA is soon to follow. He'll stay 105 champ until then, but Ryusei Matsumoto will fight Russell Acosta for the interim WBO title September 27th on that big Tenshin Nasukawa Takuma Inoue undercard. And then, of course, once the fight begins, they will be upgraded to full champion. I was a little bit surprised at this. I thought Matsumoto was going to fight Kus for the WBC title, but we'll still take this. And as I alluded to earlier, MVPW 7 has been announced for Sunday, November 8th in Arlington, Texas. Elif Turhan will be fighting Alycia Baumgardner over 10 3-minute rounds for the IBF Lightweight Championship. Turhan's first fight with MVP. She signed with them, still with Matchroom. Baumgardner moving up to 135 finally. She wasn't fighting anybody at 130, so I'm glad to see she's actually going to go up and fight somebody at lightweight. I wanted to see her and Serrano, but Serrano is seemingly at the end of her career, and we're just not going to get that fight at 130. So let's do it. Baumgardner at 135, run it, taking on Elif Turhan, and then the winner will probably fight Caroline Dubois in a 3-belt unification. That would be a big, big fight. But this is a good one, man. I mean, Baumgardner and Turhan are both punchers. Like that in 3-minute rounds as well. That's going to be really, really fun. Tiara Brown is returning, defending against Ellie Scottney, who's also moving up to featherweight. Really, really big fight there. That is a great one because Tiara Brown, one of the best American female fighters right now, and Ellie Scottney, one of the best British fighters right now for women's boxing, maybe the best, honestly. And she's, of course, coming off her undisputed win at 122. So I really like that fight. I could see either one winning. I'm actually probably favoring Scottney. Sky Nicholson, Mio Yoshida has been rebooked to this card for the WBC Super Bantamweight title. It's meant to be this weekend. And then Ramla Ali will be fighting Makia Krebs for the WBO and IBF Super Bantamweight titles, both those vacant. So 122 is quickly, reshaping after Ellie Scottney moved up. So 4 world title fights on that card. On a Sunday, too, it's going to be a lot of fun. I love that card. It's a really big one. The WBO have approved an exception for Navarrete to fight Oshaki Foster with the WBO title on the line. So this is great. I do feel really bad for Charlie Suarez. He has been robbed of getting his title shot. He's getting totally jerked around here, and I feel bad for him, but the big fights need to happen. Maybe he can fight Lomachenko. The winner is going to have to face their mandatory within 180 days, or they will be stripped, and I hope they mean that this time. Speaking of, Shuck has re-signed with Top Rank and extension, so good for him. Chris Mannix says that Teofimo versus Ryan Garcia is very likely to happen next because of the DAZN deal. They really want to make that fight. He says win or lose for Ryan on September 12th. They are probably going to make Teo versus Ryan. I think Ryan's going to win on Conor Benn, especially that picture we saw of Conor Benn today. I mean, he looks really weight trained at 147. He's already said this is his last fight there. I think Ryan's going to beat him and maybe even stop him. And then I think Ryan versus Teofimo is very likely for a unification. If not that, then Devin Haney against either of them for a unification. He also said that Xander Zayas' return fight, as mentioned in February, will actually be with Matchroom, probably in Puerto Rico. Now, we did hear that he had signed a deal for that fight, that Matchroom would get to do his next 2 fights, including the Boots Ennis fight. So this one is going to be with them. He's still with Top Rank. It's just that Matchroom had an option on him, and they get to promote him for a second fight as well. So not really sure what's going on with Top Rank with leasing out their fighters so much. But I don't know. You got to do what you got to do. I don't know why they're not getting as many dates. Speaking of DAZN, TKO now have a minority share in DAZN after DAZN recent acquisition. I think it's like Active Media or something like that. So, and then they also mentioned that TKO and NFL and some other places are also investors in DAZN now, which is just interesting because, TKO and Eddie Hearn, Dana White and Eddie Hearn have such a beef right now. It's like, is this like a power play for them to say, oh, we own your broadcaster? I don't know. I don't get it. It's just weird when they're literally directly competing with them. There was rumors of Adam Azim fighting Subriel Matias for his next fight, which would have been great. It would have been a huge step up for Azim. I would have loved that. It has been shot down, and they say that Azim is actually fighting a better opponent. I don't know if I believe that. Maybe he's fighting someone higher ranked, but I don't know if he's fighting a better opponent. We'll see, though. That fight should be happening in October. Golden Boy are set to have Jose Ramirez versus Alexis Rocha on the September 12th prelims of that Zuffa card. Now, it is cool they're getting some fights in the undercard, and that's a really good fight. Like, that should not be on the prelims. I know they're only doing a 3-fight main card because it's meant to be a Zuffa show, but I hope they just make this a 4-fight card and put this on there because that's a great fight between two Golden Boy fighters. I'm going to favor Alexis Rocha on there. Ramirez on a 2-fight losing streak just hasn't really done anything for me lately. And Alexis Rocha, I still think is pretty solid. BKFC also announced they'll be back in Australia and Brisbane on October 3rd, and the week after, October 9th, they'll be in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania for Grigoris Cisneros, who is a very good fighter, against Ryan Peterson. So that is all I've got for today. Very, very good, very big episode. We had a lot of fights this week, a lot of fights coming up this weekend, and a lot of fight announcements, and some other fight news. So a lot of fights. But thank y'all so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights. It's going to be a good one, and peace out.